Hi, everyone. This is Laurece West from LaureceWestStudios.com. I'm a voice and performance coach. I offer elite training for professionals singing and speaking. And we're continuing our series on releasing limiting beliefs, doubt, fear, worry, and anger. And today, again, I have as my guest Traci Phillips, who is a mindset expert. And she's continuing from our previous video and going into more depth in a procedure she has or a strategy she has for releasing limiting beliefs. Take it away, Traci.
Thank you, Laurece. So I know that the last session we were talking about this shifting old belief pattern exercise that I work with clients to help them get out of patterns that are not serving them any longer in life, and to better understand what it is that, where these things came from, and how they can start to shift the way in which they approach releasing these patterns. And so the 7 steps that we talked about before, I just wanted to kind of go through. There's a question that kind of attaches to each one, and then also illuminate each step and points through maybe giving some examples. So before we talked about when we have a limiting belief, it comes up a lot of times as a stuck point around things that happen to us at certain times in certain ways. So every time I go for a job interview, somehow I cannot communicate in an authentic way. What is that about?
Mm-hmm.
I can't get my foot in the door in the direction I want to go because I have this stuck point. And so the first step is to discover what is it. And as I mentioned before, a lot of the best kind of entry into that is, how are we feeling? When have we felt that way before, right? When have we felt an inability to communicate? And a lot of times it takes back to the first 5 years of life, right? Maybe the person I had a client who had a very, very stern father. And she just felt she couldn't ever communicate effectively because she was always afraid she'd say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And so when we went through this that came up immediately. So when do you remember feeling like this before? It took her right back to when she was a kid. And so we recognized that this was a limiting belief around feeling ownership of her own truth, feeling the right to actually speak her truth. And that she could then start to see all of these other ways in which it had shown up throughout her life. So we discovered it. The next step then was to acknowledge it. In other words, the question that goes with that is, what is it saying to us? What is it telling us? Right? What is this pattern showing us? And as she saw, it was showing that it really had limited her throughout her life. She kind of stayed smaller than she oftentimes wanted to be. She didn't go for those situations that she would have had to actively step up and speak her truth. That she kind of slid by and did what was comfortable because that speaking her truth just wasn't comfortable. And so she started to kind of mourn that a little bit, that, wow, there were all these opportunities that if only, right? And so that will come to the surface, as we start to do this discovery process. But it told her more, because what it does is it takes the ownership off. A lot of times we blame ourselves. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just, right?
Oh, I say everybody comes by things honestly. We come by it honestly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yet that isn't what we've been conditioned to go to, is, oh, I just did this honestly. Oh, I'm okay with this. Most of the time we have that critical parent in our head going, what's wrong with you, right? So she was able to kind of go, oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I now see why I didn't feel comfortable stepping up in this way. So that leads us to step 3, right? So step 3 is finding that greater purpose. And I love this. I don't know if you're familiar, Laurece, with the law of duality. But the law of duality, there's all the laws of nature. There's the law of attraction.
Right.
Law of reciprocity. There's all these laws. Well, the law of duality talks about, it's the yin-yang, right? You can't have yin without yang. You can't have up without down. That the shadow actually helps support the light, right? And without the shadow, we don't know what light is without shadow, and we don't know what shadow is without light.
Right.
So the law of duality
is, I don't appreciate a warm day in the same way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And that if we look at it as a flip side of a coin, you don't have heads without tails. the whole coin is made up of both heads and tails. Well, if we look at that whole coin as life, life is about shadow and light, right?
Yeah.
That's life. We get the whole coin.
Yeah.
And so the greater purpose of that, as she found, was that it allowed her, she had to go through all of this in such a way, almost struggling and challenged in this area, because what she came to realize is her deepest truth was she was a truth speaker. She actually, that was the thing she felt was her greatest value, and she was comfortable.
Yes.
So that because she had to be challenged in this, it actually became the great value in the challenge, allowed her to actually see this great gift, because had she not been challenged in it, she might never have seen it.
Well, that's why I do what I do. It's because I received such criticism and such negativity that it was that dark side that drew me to create beauty with the voice. And it was vocal. It was vocal abuse. So creating beauty out of that drive to create beauty and to put really good energy into the voice came from that darkness, and I needed that to have more of that push. And also then I can help people who have that, that struggle with creating beauty with their voice, or that struggle speaking their truth, because I wasn't also. So it does show up as sometimes our greatest purpose in life is we have to have the resistance, right? To make us stronger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It legitimizes our value and our experience with that value. And so it absolutely, and quite frankly, it just makes us feel better, right? So here's this thing that we were beating ourselves up for years and years, or not understanding, and then suddenly we have this illumination around it, and then we can gain this greater value from it. Yeah. So it's very important, but it also is an honoring. It's an honoring, which again, in many past cultures, there's a huge process of honoring, that we miss that in our culture. There's so many things. I wrote a blog post somewhat recently about the power of honoring, the importance of honoring, and how we've lost sight of that. Yeah. To look at all sides, because they all have a role, right? You gave me chills when you were just talking about your voice and having to go through the challenge in your life, because it has created your passion and your purpose in what you do as life work. And so this is that opportunity to connect with that, and it is an honoring of that. So it leads us then to the next stage, the next step, which is, the fourth step, which is giving thanks. So because we have really now seen, and as this client of mine, she's like, oh my gosh, this completely flipped this on end. It just switched at 360 degrees. I now don't look at this challenging pattern as a bad thing. It has now given me this great gift of knowledge in what it's really about. And so she can have gratitude for that. And then that sets us up to step 5, which is then releasing it, right? It's like when, this is a funny, really quick story, but when my husband's dog died, who he'd had throughout much of his adult life, he was buried in our backyard, and we kind of had this quick burial. And I had a friend come out a little while after that, and she says, oh, he's not gone. He hasn't been honored. And so we went out and we took the time and all that, and she goes, oh, I felt him release. And we felt it too. And it was just, we get so caught up in our lives, and we forget that these little spirits, they need to be honored. Everything needs to be honored. Yeah. So thanks, we can release, right? He released, just as that little spirit, dog spirit, was able to be released because he was then honored and seen, that we can then release those.
Right. And there's the other aspect of it, which is that the limiting beliefs are literally chemistry. In order to break the bonds of the chemistry that's creating these beliefs, we have to take it to a higher energy level. And that gratitude is a very easy way to take it to a higher energy level. Because literally to change those electric bonds, in the nucleus that's creating the thought, the chemistry of the thoughts, and that are in the same patterns, we have to go to a higher energy level. And gratitude and honoring, that's love, and those are really high energy emotions.
Yes, the highest vibration that we can bring ourselves to. And so that kind of resets the button. It's like reset, right? The easy button. Reset. So that now after the giving thanks, now we can, after the release, sorry, we've released and let this pattern go. Now we're prepared for step 6, which is to recreate. Right? So we're going to now upgrade what we were working with, the pattern that has been, that ongoing motivation. Now we can say, what do we want instead? Right? So the question is indeed, what do you want instead? Now that you've released this, it served you. We understand why. We've given gratitude and thanks and honor. Now you get to create. You, as a small child, you didn't have control over creating this pattern.
Yes.
But now with this awareness, you have control. And then the final step
like
is
power.
Once
we're our power, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
That's right. In an intentional way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it leads to that final step, which is indeed intending, right? Now that we've recreated what that new pattern, what we want that new pattern to be, we set it forth into the universe, into the world through our power of intention. And the intent, how is it going to be instead? And the question around is, what's next, right? So what's next? How do I want this to look? No. And we hear about vision boards, and I do an authentic life exercise with my clients that's kind of like a written vision board, to get detail oriented around what they want their life to look like.
Nice.
From this deep inner place of knowing. So that's the process, and it's very powerful. And I've seen some amazing awarenesses and ahas and tears and joy and everything come from clients going through this process.
Wow. Thank you. So if someone would like some more support from you, how do they get in touch with you?
So again, the best way to get in touch, I think I mentioned in our last video, is through I have 2 websites. I have my corporate coaching website, which is theinnatecoach.com. There is a form that you can submit, and I will get back in touch with you. And also my Certain Way to Wellness website, where there's a lot of blog postings and that type of thing. There's also a form that can be submitted there, and people can get in touch with me in that way.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today. We really appreciate it. What a powerful process. And everyone, until next time, sing and speak with your heart. Take good care.